Well, bugger me with a cinder block. Electronic Arts actually took the microtransactions out of Star Wars Battlefront. Temporarily. Following a litany of PR disasters in the wake of Star Wars Battlefront 2, which came out in EA Access 4 days ago, EA has apologised for the pay-to-win mobile game trash that is Star Wars Gamblefront 2. Here's the official statement from DICE. As we approach the worldwide launch, it's clear that many of you feel there are still challenges in the design. We've heard the concerns about potentially giving players unfair advantages, no potential about it, and we've heard that this is overshadowing an otherwise great game. I would say it's a mediocre game at best, even without them. Anyway, back to the statement. This was never our intention. Sorry we didn't get this right. Oh no, you got this right. You got exactly what the shareholders wanted. You got what your actual customers wanted. You just pissed off the consumers, the people you view as cattle, a little bit more than you expected. Back to the statement. We hear you loud and clear. Yeah, well, Reddit was fucking loud enough. So we're turning off all in-game purchases. How generous of you. We will now spend more time listening, adjusting, balancing, and tuning. You normally do that before a game comes out. This means that the option to purchase crystals in the game is now offline and all progression will be earned through gameplay. So is it going to take thousands of hours to unlock everything now or not? The ability to purchase crystals in-game will become available at a later date, only after we've made changes to the game. We'll share more details as we work through this. So first of all, well done everyone for kicking up such a stink that EA got worried. The story made some mainstream news headlines. There's talk of Dutch and Belgian and other authorities actually looking into loot boxes now to determine whether or not they're predatory or gambling and targeting children in some way, which is great. But don't forget what I said in a prior video. The online nature of these games means that publishers can do stuff like this. They can just flip a switch while things are hot, while people are angry, and turn off the microtransactions. Just like that. Boom, gone. Then theoretically, all they have to do is wait until the heat dies down, wait until they've made a lot of sales, wait until any straggling reviewers have said, oh, this is actually good now, then flip the bastards right back on. With Battlefront 2 being built so deeply around this fucking star card system, with loot boxes and glorified gambling so deeply ingrained into it, there's no way they're going to be able to fully extract it. What they've done is a temporary stopgap. Now, I'm not going to say that they're not going to tweak and balance the game and make things a little bit more fair. They'll do like they did after the beta and that caused a big backlash. They'll just walk back some of the shit. They won't walk it back all the way, they've more or less confirmed that, but the best they can do, short of just leaving the fucking microtransactions turned off in perpetuity, which of course nobody at EA would be willing to do, is just make the system a bit less shit than it was before. They'll go from very bad to bad, and a lot of people will be fooled by that and say, oh, this isn't so bad. Well, it's not as bad as it was, and like a Mighty Number 9 PR rep would say, that's better than nothing. But it's really not better than nothing, because this is a premium priced game that's gonna have microtransactions in it regardless, and is still gonna do its darndest to make this loot box shit, this glorified gambling, more palatable for you, the consumer, the thing they view as cattle. This is more of a PR move than it is a customer-friendly one. If Electronic Arts actually gave a shit about what we felt, this wouldn't have happened in the first place. They care more about what their investors feel, what the shareholders feel, what newspaper articles say about them. They care about the fact that their Reddit AMA on the Star Wars Battlefront 2 subreddit was such a fucking disaster, and they looked like such utter cowards that even that made news. My own question, which I think ended up being the top most voted, went completely unanswered, and it was one of those situations where silence spoke 1,000 fucking words. I know I mixed that up with the picture metaphor, but I'm riffing here, just go with me, otherwise it won't quite work. It's not even a metaphor really, is it? It's just a saying. It doesn't really matter at this juncture. What's important is remembering that this is a temporary withdrawal from the battlefront on EA's part. They're not good guys now, they didn't do this out the kindness of their hearts, they're in the middle of a PR fucking disaster, and they need to apply some coolant to it. The quickest and easiest way to do that is now, on the official day of launch, flip a switch, turn off the microtransactions, and then just keep your fucking head down until the heat cools off. Until then, the buggy rush job with an unfinished campaign that is Star Wars Battlefront 2, I guess is just a grind fest, so enjoy that. But not everything is doom and gloom. I am pleased that EA was affected by this negatively enough to have to turn it off and keep its head down. I fucking hope publishers are a little bit nervous now. I hope publishers have felt that maybe EA overstepped the fucking mark, brought a few too many mainstream eyes on them, and are starting to tug at their collars and sweat a bit. But in any case, I'm not going to forget this. I'm not going to forget what Star Wars Battlefront 2 was in its original form, because that is EA's intent laid bare. No matter what changes they made in future, once again, like so many of these companies, EA showed its hand and let us know how it really feels about us. No matter what they do to mend the public relations gaffe now, we need to not forget what Battlefront 2 was then, what it was in those 4 days of early access. Because that money grubbing, that contempt for the customer, that love of predation and psychological manipulation, that's Electronic Arts laid bare. That's the AAA game industry laid bare. Battlefront 2 may have put its hand a bit too deep in the cookie jar. It may have pulled that hand back after getting burned, but we all know how many cookies they wanted, and it was a fuckload of fucking cookies. Star Wars Battlefront 2 is still to me a walking trash fire, a major disappointment, one of the most intellectually and philosophically insulting games I've seen this year, barring the dozen or so games that arrived via Steam Direct that are deliberately built to be offensive, of course. For what it represents, and for what it tried to do, and for what it is bound to still attempt to do, albeit in a less obvious way in future, Star Wars Battlefront 2 is in the heavy running for my shittiest Game of the Year awards, which happen to be among my more popular videos. I've zero intention of letting it off the hook. That original version of Battlefront 2 represents where the game industry wants to go. And all that's really happened is that Electronic Arts has learned you can't leap from where we are now to where it wants to be. It's going to have to walk. And the walk is the thing to be worried about, because that is more subtle. That is more insidious. You know, we look at the way DLC slowly evolved into microtransactions. We look at the way microtransactions slowly evolved into this loot box stuff. It's only now in the tail end of 2017 that a number of games have been really blatant and taken the absolute fucking piss. But after all this backlash, expect the companies to withdraw some, lick their wounds, and then think of a more subtle, tactful approach to make sure you swallow their bad medicine like good little children. So a bit of a victory, but a victory nonetheless. However, I do believe one should stay incredibly vigilant, because we're talking about fucking vampires like EA and Activision and Warner Brothers here. They got a very good thing going on with this loot box stuff, controversy aside, and they're absolutely not just going to let it go. Not with the amount of money they're making off this shit. And EA can sit there and say, it's not gambling as long as it wants. I've said a dozen times over, no, it's not legally gambling. You can argue it's not technically gambling, but in every colloquial sense of the word, it fucking is gambling. It's Star Wars Gamblefront 2. And if this isn't the overreach that's going to get gambling commissions interested, something is going to happen at some point if publishers continue to force these loot boxes down our throats as desperately, as cloyingly, as pathetically as they currently are. Left unchecked, these mainstream publishers are going to do what it takes, by hook, by crook, whatever it takes to get as much money out of you as possible. They've already shown they don't care that they use inherently predatory and exploitative methods to get the money. Now we hope and wait for a game that jumps so deep into the greed pool it can't swim its fucking way back out again. And there's a good chance of that happening even after the backlash Battlefront 2 caused, because we're talking about mainstream AAA publishers here. They can't help themselves, they can't control themselves, and after this Battlefront 2 fiasco, it's quite clear they're very very willing to walk into gigantic PR disasters to get what they want. But I hope Electronic Arts has pissed off the other companies, I certainly do. I hope that they're a little bit pissed off with EA right now for having their cover blown so publicly. I hope this leads to them being on the defensive now more than ever, because yeah, while I may have lost the fight against microtransactions in premium games, at least for some of these companies, victory is a pain in the arse, isn't it? You fucks, you greedy fucks, you shameless hogs in the muck. In short, I still maintain my stance of Battlefront 2 can die in a fucking fire, covered in wasps and poison and poo.